Hi, this talks about investigations and what you need to know about them. There's two types of investigations, a civil investigation and a criminal investigation. The civil is known as an audit, and the criminal, somewhere along the line, gets to be known exactly what it is a criminal investigation to convict you of tax evasion. So there's a lot to really know about this whole process. Canada Revenue Agency is investigative by nature. That's what an audit is. It's an investigation in two parts. One, did you do things correctly? And two, did you do things incorrectly? And if you didn't do them correctly, was it gross negligence or did you have a guilty mind? And it's where the guilty mind lies that you cross the Rubicon and get into a criminal investigation. So it's important to take a step back and take a look at this whole thing about tax evasion interest by CRA. A fellow came into my office just the other day, and he just got out of Maplehurst, where he'd spent 4 months in jail, convicted of tax evasion. Upon reviewing the case, it became evident to me that the lawyer was not a tax lawyer, didn't know the difference between tax avoidance and tax evasion, and that wasn't brought out in the trial. So the guy clearly was doing tax avoidance. And in my opinion, he was grossly negligent on the things that he did. I didn't see anything that told me that he intended to evade taxes. They made a big issue out of the fact that he had set up a Panama corporation that they acknowledged he never did anything with. And they suspected that he set up the Panama corporation to do tax evasion. They didn't bring out a simple fact of the matter is that if he'd ever used the corporation, what evidence did they have to prove that he intended to avoid paying tax? There was absolutely no proof, and yet it helped to convict him of tax evasion. There's nothing illegal about having an offshore company at all. And what is illegal is to intend to do tax evasion with it. So this fellow got in trouble for a whole bunch of things and got convicted because he had a lawyer who didn't understand taxes. So you need to understand just how important that is when you're looking at your affairs. And if in an audit, a question is asked that doesn't sound like an audit question, but sounds like that of a suspicious person, you always ask, is this an audit or an investigation? Because if it's an investigation, your charter rights are triggered, the audit is over, and they can no longer audit you. They have to investigate you. So that's a little difference that's really important to know. And the term crossing the Rubicon is when the procedure stops being a civil investigation and turns into a criminal investigation. Criminal, they have to notify you that you're being investigated, and they can't violate your Charter of Rights, because if they do, any information collected can be thrown out. And while that's not a get out of jail card, even if the information is thrown out, it still doesn't mean that you're not going to get convicted of tax evasion. A civil investigation is on the balance of probabilities. This is what was going on. Like I would say with the fellow the other day, on the balance of probabilities, he intended to avoid paying taxes by using the Panama company. And you could even stretch it and say on the balance of probabilities, he didn't plan to pay tax on that. But the balance of probabilities will never get you a criminal charge unless somebody doesn't know what they're doing. You'd have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt. And I'll give you an example. Correspondence between the payer and a broker who sets up corporations along the lines of indicating that he wants to set this up so he doesn't pay any income tax. And these people have explanations about why you don't, but they're wrong, and you do have to. So this is so important that if you were, for lack of a better word, stupid, and decided that you didn't have to pay tax for whatever dumb reason, and that if you went offshore that you wouldn't have to pay tax, you're starting to venture into the area where you ought to have known better. You're willfully blind, and you ignore things like you're taxable on your worldwide income. And I don't care what resignation directors bullshit that's put together. The reality is, if you're over there to pay tax, that's to not pay tax, you are being involved in tax evasion, and you just think that it falls under tax avoidance, but it doesn't. If in your mind you intended to evade paying taxes and try to put together some story, the story doesn't matter anything, because it's what happens afterwards. Did you set up that Panama corporation? Did you put money in it? Did you claim that money? If you didn't claim that money, it's tax evasion, because you ought to have known better, and it's even outside of the spirit of the law. Look at what the spirit of the law is, and you won't have and follow that. You won't have a problem with tax evasion charges, because the spirit of the law is we all pay our fair share of taxes, no more and no less. So don't do the things that can get you into a criminal investigation, and even to get out of it, it's very, very expensive. You know, you're looking at $100,000 lawsuit or more, and I know this factually because I do litigation support. It just simply isn't worth the risk. Don't avoid paying your taxes through intent to avoid, because that gets captured. And just be a good, hard-working taxpayer. Don't give CRA reason to do an investigation, because from the day that you know you're being investigated, you're in for 3 years of hell, maybe more, maybe a little less. And in the end, you may find yourself with a criminal charge, unable to leave the country, and liable for that tax debt where bankruptcy won't save your butt. So just don't do it. Pay your taxes. Have a good day.